is gaining more information and insight into bodies of water that they may only know words and data about.
When Wrigley reached out to me about this project, I thought, oh, how cool, like I could actually like show my science through art. And what was really neat was when I came to the gallery opening night and I started talking to people, they were actually really curious about the science. People really do care about what we're doing. We just have to show them what we're doing, and that I think is a hard thing to overcome, is like how do we communicate our science, and I think a great way to do that is using opportunities like this through art.
Environmental science is more important now than ever, and data can only go so far on delivering the methods and research that scientists are doing. And I think art can really allow people to engage in science in a new way that allows for further insight.
So again, just that putting together, oh, I got 10 minutes? Oh, I was actually rushing. Go slow and talk more. Of putting those artists and scientists together, and not just, you know, one-off. They spent a summer together, and really, you know, the artist was really out there collecting microbiology samples and really understanding what the scientist was doing. And the scientist was really working with the artist to understand how that happens. And I think they both, at the end of that experience, grew considerably as people, as change makers. So I may end up early because I was sort of rushing thinking I was so if there are questions, well, lots of time for those. We also put together in that public arena, we need to get the information out there. You can't have the ivory towers doing everything and keeping it inside. You need to disseminate that to the world. And we have a couple of sort of signature annual events for that. The Delta Murphy Lecture Series. Usually it's just to find somebody who is a prominent person in the community and a community around, and talk to them about how can we as scientists and how can you as people really make change. Last year it was inspiring climate actions through immersive narratives. And they had the lead designer of the 9/11 Museum come out, the director of MoCA come out, and then Billy Zane, the actor. And they were all having a conversation about how best to engage the public, how best for artists to engage the scientists. And it's a really fun time. We don't have the next date. There will be one in 2025. We haven't got the date set up. And then we work with the Center for the Political Future on the Climate Forward workshop, which is, again, bringing in speakers to talk to the communities, to talk to the scientists about where we are and how can we make big changes in the needs that we have to have. We've also started a Storymaker program. And this is not just within USC. This is a group of people that will come out, again, to the island for about 10 days, a week to 10 days, depending on how it runs. And it's really about taking scientists from across the country, really good scientists who, you know, quite frankly, were not great communicators to the public. You know, it's really hard to say never for me because there's always that small probability of something. We never say never. We say probably not, most likely not. That's a rare occurrence. Whereas, you know, a lot of people in TV land will say never like it's no big deal. So it's really a different way of speaking when you're speaking to other scientists, where it has to be very precise. They have to be able to listen to what I say and replicate exactly what I did, versus telling a story. So we adopted this idea of a Storymaker program. Like I said, it's a week out on the island. It's very immersive, where we bring in something like 7 to 10 scientists, really good scientists, but also bring in really good communicators, people who can talk to the public much better. You know, Pulitzer Prize winning writers, New York Times best-selling authors, audio producers, Disney executives, and really work with the scientists to say, this is how you tell a story. This isn't just about somebody taking what I did and being able to replicate it, or taking what I did and being able to build on it. We need to be able to tell a story. So they come out to the island. Again, it's a very immersive program. They're living together. This group will live together with their instructors. They'll build a podcast over the time of this. They'll have, at some point, have to write, a story in some kind of media over the next year. That's part of the deal, and so on. And again, we sort of touched on this a little bit. We also have the arts at Wrigley, bringing in art to help communicate in science. A lot of the artists that you heard, her pictures are now up on the island. We have a little art park that we built so that people can go through and see. We change the display out every year. But we've done several of these sort of art in the world, art in the environment, visualizing the issues that we have. And then finally, we do have, for the public, somebody was asking about, we used to have like family camp and some of those things. The problem is the island has become very, very, very popular. And we do, as a director, maybe it's me, but myself and Joe, do have that desire to really push as hard as we can into the undergraduate education. So we have Maymester, which is the first month of summer. We have Julymester that takes up most of the last month of summer. So all of the rest of our programs get piled into 1 month of summer. So it's hard to do a lot of public, long-term public things, but we still try to do things like Wrigley Day, that'll be 2026. Let's come out to the island, we open the place up, we show it off as best we can, have a nice meal, and then go home. And then for my last couple of minutes, just sort of as a conclusion, I just wanted to give an idea that all of this work really does make a difference.
And
this is an ex-N student
how I came to be in this
who is now a
Chapman,
professor at
just
Chapman.
in life in general. I came in as a freshman who was really passionate about music, but knew that that wasn't going to be a career that I followed. So I really sought out some experiences with the ENST program that kind of solidified how I could see a career for myself in environmental science. I can think of one major thing that changed my trajectory, which goes back to my time on Catalina Island. I realized that you could do research out in the world and underwater, and that was super exciting for me. Throughout the rest of my time at USC, I didn't leave the island. I was out there diving, at least once a month. I ended up at Chapman because it reminded me a lot of my undergrad. The community that I found in the environmental science program at USC was a community that I still have to this day, not just with fellow students, but with the faculty there. I keep in touch with pretty much all of them, and I think that experience showed me that there doesn't have to be such a large barrier between professors and their students, and I hope my students here feel the same way about me. USC ENST is something that I see as kind of a role model for how I built the department here. Things like centering interdisciplinarity, the hands-on experiences that I had at USC out in the field, and working with local nonprofits, or things that I try and bring to my students here. I'm encouraged that my students have really diverse skill sets and strengths and passions, and this diversity leads to a community that has the resilience to support each other when they're addressing really, really large societal problems.
And Richelle comes out now with her class from Chapman. They have a break in the winter, which is really kind of unfortunate for her. But in January, because January weather is not the best, to do the channel crossing. But she brings hers out to do that same sort of Maymester model that we have in talking to her. And she brings her class out for field trips. And it's really fun for me because I was here as a faculty member when she was here as an undergrad to see one, it's probably not one because this is how long I've been here, but someone who's gone from undergrad through grad school, through a postdoc, and into a faculty position, and still, taking the lessons that she learned from us and bringing them to her students. And that's sort of where I was going to close it at. I'm more than happy to take questions for as long as people. Go ahead.
You have a question. You have a connection with space
we don't have much direct, but, I'm going to get back to the speaker. So the question is, do we have much connection with space and space travel? Not much direct, but there's a NASA has their C-Test program, which is basically bringing astronauts and giving them near zero-G training underwater. And so the last couple of years, they won't be able to make it out this year because of budgetary issues, but the last couple of years they've come out. And Suni, who was trapped on the space station for so long, she had trained at the Institute just before that. So, you know, I got to have meals with her and watch the launch and then feel sorry that she's trapped in space.
Two things. How do you build a village over there by two harbors? How do you get water? And then you had a slide about global security reports or something.
I'm not as good on the global security master's program, but if you, I can give you my email and I can find it. And, yeah, that one's outside of the poor microbiologist field. Water, the water we get is basically pumped groundwater from the interior of the island. And then right above the campus, if you, I won't go back, there's a giant water tank. It's called a 1 million gallon tank. That's where all of our drinking water comes from. Of that 1 million gallons, 800,000 gallons is reserved for fire suppression. So we only have like 200,000 gallons, but Two Harbors is really small, 200,000 gallons. It goes a long way. Our power is equally bad. All of our power right now is generated in Avalon and is sent on a single transmission line through the interior to the island. And we're working very hard on a solar microgrid. Permitting in LA is tough.
How are your programs going to be affected by all the funding and research cuts that we're hearing about?
It is absolutely impossible to know. I mean, my wife, as I said, is the director of USC Sea Grant. Every day is like, is Sea Grant still here? Because Sea Grant is part of NOAA. It has been removed from the budget. They're talking about putting it back in the budget. If the indirect costs are brought down, you know, that's going to impact all of the budgets. So at this point, just, you know, well, it's, you know, we're sort of forced into a reactionary phase. There's no clear cut, this is what we should be planning for, because things are changing so fast. It's just hope.
Thank you so much. It's so fascinating. I'm just curious, what do you suppose, do you have any thoughts about what I see on the news with maybe it's going to be fewer imports coming into the port of Los Angeles, which would lead to fewer ships coming into the port of Los Angeles? What do you suppose might happen with our ocean and the plants and the animals down below? What sort of effect might possibly have with fewer ships coming in?
It's actually a great question. So after the fires, we did a bunch of like real quick, rapid funding for some people to go out and look at the impact of the immediate rains after the fires on kelp and things like that. But we've been talking in leadership, is this the next, you know, we have an unfortunate perhaps experiment that's running, we don't control it, but what do we need to do to study what that is? I mean, not necessarily predicting, but actually just saying, let's study this and see what is happening. And then from that, we can make predictive models of if this happened to reduce trade or if this happens to increase trade. So it's an experiment that needs to be studied because it is a lot different in the port now.
Fewer ships coming in, right?
Yeah, and you know, just over the last few years, because during the pandemic, when you would see ships, you know, on anchorage throughout the whole channel, it seemed like, and now it's fewer and fewer.
And you know, we have somebody from down here, one of our own people from Costa Mesa, Newport Beach. Tom Daisy was I don't know that name, but he was a Newport Beach police officer and I think assistant chief. Then he went over to Costa Mesa, where I was the chief, and he went from there out to be the head of the police at the port. He's there, so he's in charge of a lot of things going on out there. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think well, like I said, we'll try to get some rapid money into some of the faculty, and again, that money would go towards both social and scientific It's got to be careful, because social science is still science.
I live literally off the beach in Carlsbad, and what we're finding on the beach almost on a daily basis is our birds and sea life impacted by algae. And I was wondering if the, USC, if the Wrigley Institute, if this is part of their study process.
Yeah, so that is, Dave Caron is in the Marine Environmental Biology section, and that is his area of expertise, is in the harmful algal blooms. And he's been studying those for decades. I think there is a place to try to, we're still at the phase of why do these blooms happen? We understand the sort of first principles of the blooms, but that's not enough to get like a predictive model. I don't know if anybody's from, I'm going to go back to my microbiology roots, but like Louisiana, where you have Vibrios, organisms that I study, can cause really severe problems in people. And they're naturally occurring, but there are certain environmental factors that will cause them to bloom. They understand that model, and in Louisiana, when those issues are occurring, they just shut everything down. The watermen are in favor of that because you don't want to go out and harvest and have all of your harvest have to be thrown away. You just rather it sit for another week and let it clean itself out, and then harvest it and get paid for it. I think that's the kind of model that, California, a postdoc who works at a place just down the street called Southern California Coastal Water Research Program, SCORE. And that's exactly the work for the agencies, primarily government agencies, but where they would like to be able to understand those really complex models to say, this is when an algal bloom would happen.
Yeah, it's every so often.
It is, yeah. Okay, are there one more question? We have
This is not exactly what you were talking about, but we've been hearing so much about plastics and the ocean and plastics in the marine life and so forth. And I remember a few years ago we started about these plastic bags in the grocery store. And it seemed like a more minor issue to us, but I remember being sick of and years where literally all the streets and the coastline were lined with blue plastic bags laying everywhere. And it seems to me like, that's a huge problem, particularly in the third world.
It's a huge problem, everywhere. It's amplified in the developing nations, but that is one of the major, so with the sort of carbon sequestration, the plastics in the environment. So we have chemists who are looking at how to depolymerize and repolymerize plastics into high-use plastics. Most of them, if they even get recycled, are being downcycled. So they're going from a more valuable to a less valuable product. At USC, they're working on how to upcycle those. So take the existing plastics, convert them into higher use plastics, more expensive plastics, which can change the recycling model really, really quickly. But also, well,